What was the customer's authorization system like before migrating to OSO?
Well, my case is a bit weird because it's actually a greenfield migration. So the problem they're dealing with is they want to write an LLM application that's based on a bunch of upstream data sources. Those data sources are maintained by different teams, different contractors, completely different systems with their own authorization model. So part of the challenge is defining policy in OSO that mirrors the models of the upstream systems and then pulling in data from those systems and doing all the mapping. So it's a bit different because we're not dealing with legacy code except for the interfaces to the upstream systems. But anyway, everyone else is dealing with legacy code bases that already have their own authorization set up.
I see.
Yeah, I found that as far as migrating authorization, a lot of code bases that are adopting an authorization solution like OSO haven't previously thought of authorization as its own thing that you need to abstract out of the code, out of the logic. Often you'll start out like with a function in one part of the code base that's like get all the users and what companies they belong to, and then later on some additional functionality is added, and it's like get all users with this role or with this permission, and that lives in one part of the code base, and then call that to like tie that together with something in another part of the code base. And things just kind of grow organically all over the place. And one of the hardest parts of migrating is just kind of pulling them out and figuring out how the different pieces of logic piece together to kind of tie that into a single authorization model.
Yeah, my situation was similar. Like we had some sort of authorization logic which was sort of littered in like different places, but also had some levels of abstraction, like in the middleware. So for the duration of a request, you might see some auth logic at the middleware layer, and then like some sort of check right at the start, like the body of like the main handler for the endpoint, and then further stuff on the database, and maybe even potentially, if you're feeling really fun, after the database query as well. So similar sort of situation, but I think also we had this like a replication of logic as well. So we'd have the same logic in like for different purposes. So for a single sort of request, determining if you can do a particular sort of action on a particular resource, but then also supporting different use cases like list queries, and even essentially the same replication of logic in the front end to support like sort of the UX and giving customers a good feel on the interface. Yes, that was our situation.
I hadn't thought of that before, but switching from an imperative language and implementing authorization logic in something like Python to something declarative like Polar lets you deduplicate the logic in that way, and that you can have the same logic and ask different questions of it, whereas you would need to duplicate it like that if you're doing it in JavaScript or Python. I've also seen in one of the code bases I've worked with where they need to ask a bunch of different questions, and so they kind of fill out like a big list of dictionaries for these things and then filter them in different ways.
Yeah, totally.